Under the soft light of twin suns, the royal city of Valtor prepared for a wedding that would be remembered for generations. Towers grown from crystal stone shimmered in shades of blue and gold. Long banners floated in the warm air, carrying symbols of unity between alien clans that had once been rivals. Music filled the open plazas, slow and ceremonial, meant to calm old wounds and celebrate peace. Among the many guests arriving through the grand gates was a single human. His name was Ethan Cole. Ethan was a warrior, though nothing about him looked loud or proud. He wore a simple dark uniform, clean but plain, with no shining medals on display. His posture was straight, his movements calm and careful. To many aliens watching from balconies and corridors, he looked small compared to their tall frames and long limbs, yet something about him made them pause. His eyes were steady, alert, and quiet, like someone who had seen danger and survived it without needing to speak of it. Humans were still rare visitors in royal courts. They were known across the stars as determined, stubborn, and strangely brave. Some called them reckless, others called them loyal beyond reason. Ethan had been invited not because of politics, but because years ago, during a border crisis, he had protected an alien convoy when no one else would. He never asked for reward. He simply returned to his post and carried on. Now, he walked alone through the palace gates as a guest. Ethan had no expectations. He planned to attend the ceremony, offer respect, and leave quietly. Royal events were not his world. Crowds made him uncomfortable, and attention even more so. Still, he understood the importance of showing goodwill between species, and that was reason enough to come. Inside the grand hall, the wedding preparations were already in motion. The ceiling arched high above, glowing softly like a living sky. Rows of nobles filled the seats, their clothing rich with color and meaning. Guards stood at every entrance, tall and armored, watching with disciplined calm. Ethan took his place near the side, far from the central platform. He folded his hands behind his back and observed, saying nothing. As the music changed, the royal family entered. First came the king, Valric the Steadfast, ruler of the Vorthan people. His presence alone silenced the room. He was tall, broad, and carried the weight of leadership in every step. His eyes swept across the guests, sharp but fair. Beside him walked his daughters. The youngest was the bride, glowing with excitement and nervous joy. Her steps were light, her expression bright. The court smiled for her. Behind her, however, walked the king's eldest daughter. Her name was Princess Kaelira. She was taller than most of her kind. Her build strong and balanced, shaped by years of training rather than decoration. Her formal attire was elegant, but restrained, designed to honor tradition without hiding her strength. Her expression was calm, almost distant, and her eyes held a quiet seriousness. Kaelira was not the center of attention, yet somehow she commanded it. Ethan noticed her without meaning to. He did not stare, but something about her presence felt familiar. Not beauty alone, but the way she stood slightly apart. Like someone used to carrying responsibility alone, like someone who watched instead of celebrated. For a brief moment, their eyes met across the hall. Kaelira looked at him. Really looked. And then turned away. No surprise showed on her face. Only thought. The ceremony began. Words of unity echoed through the hall. Promises were spoken, witnessed by nobles and elders alike. Ethan listened respectfully. Though his thoughts drifted, he wondered how many treaties had begun like this, full of hope and careful smiles. Then, as the vows neared their end, the atmosphere shifted. An elder stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly across the hall. He spoke of an ancient tradition, one older than the kingdom itself, a symbolic rite meant to bless not only the couple, but the royal family as a whole. "The protectors stand," the elder announced. A low murmur spread among the nobles. Ethan frowned slightly. He had not seen this mentioned in the briefing he received. The elder explained that, by tradition, one warrior must step forward during the final blessing. This warrior would symbolically offer protection to the royal line, not for battle, but as a vow of presence. It was a gesture meant to show that the family would never stand alone. Usually, a chosen champion performed this role. This time, no one moved. The hall grew quiet. Several warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan sensed tension ripple through the crowd. Something was wrong. The elder's eyes shifted, uncertain. The king's jaw tightened, just slightly. Ethan did not know the full meaning of the rite. He only understood that the silence felt wrong. After a moment, driven by instinct rather than thought, he stepped forward. The sound of his boots against the floor echoed loudly in the stillness. Gasps filled the hall. Ethan stopped at the marked space before the royal platform. He stood straight, hands relaxed at his sides, unaware that his simple action had just changed everything. "I offer my stand," he said calmly. The elder froze. The king stared at him. Princess Kalira turned sharply, her eyes wide for the first time. Whispers broke out among the nobles, fast and urgent. Some looked shocked. Others looked alarmed. A few looked almost afraid. The elder slowly raised a hand. "Human," he said carefully. "Do you understand what you have done?" Ethan shook his head once. "I saw no one step forward. It seemed wrong to let the moment pass." Silence returned, heavier than before. The elder's voice grew solemn. "The protector's stand is not a simple gesture. It is a binding vow under royal law." Ethan felt a tightening in his chest but did not move. "Then explain it," he said quietly. "I will not withdraw from something I do not understand." The king descended one step from the platform. His gaze was intense, searching. "This stand," the king said, "binds the warrior to the royal bloodline. It marks the one who steps forward as chosen by fate or will." A pause. "In rare cases," the king continued, "it has led to bonds far deeper than protection." Ethan finally understood that this was no ordinary ritual. Still, he did not step back. "I did not come here to cause trouble," he said. "But I will not insult your people by abandoning a vow once spoken." The king studied him in silence. Then Kalira moved. She stepped forward from her place beside her sister. Her voice clear and steady. "Father," she said, "the ritual has been accepted. Let it continue." The king turned to her in surprise. "Kalira." She met his gaze without hesitation. "If tradition matters, then it must be honored fully." Her eyes shifted to Ethan. For the first time, she allowed herself a small, thoughtful smile. The elder raised his staff once more. "Then let it be recorded," he declared. "The protector's stand has been taken." Ancient symbols lit up along the hall's walls, glowing softly as if awakened from sleep. Ethan felt a strange warmth pass through him. Not painful, not frightening, just present. The wedding continued, but nothing felt the same. As the ceremony ended and the hall filled with cautious applause, Ethan stood where he was, realizing that he had arrived as a guest, and that, somehow, he would not be leaving unchanged. Far above, the twin suns shifted in the sky, casting long shadows across the palace floor, shadows that quietly marked the beginning of a story no one had planned. The celebration did not end with music and laughter, as Ethan had expected. Instead, the palace slowly emptied in careful silence. Guests spoke in low voices, glancing toward the royal platform, and then toward the human who still stood near it. What should have been a joyful wedding had turned into something uncertain and heavy with meaning. Ethan was escorted to a quiet chamber overlooking the inner gardens. Tall crystal windows showed glowing plants and flowing water below, but he barely noticed the beauty. His mind replayed the moment he stepped forward again and again. He had acted without thinking, the same way he always did in danger. Now he wondered if instinct alone had brought him into something far greater than he could understand. He stood near the window when the doors opened. Princess Kalira entered the room. She was no longer wearing the full ceremonial attire. Instead, she wore a simpler outfit, meant for private duty, fitted and practical. It suited her even more. 2 guards waited outside as the doors closed softly behind her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Kalira studied Ethan openly, without judgment or fear. Ethan turned and inclined his head respectfully. unsure of the proper custom but determined not to offend. "You did not ask to be here," she said at last. "No," Ethan replied honestly. "I didn't. Yet you stepped forward." He nodded once. "Yes." Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but in focus. "Why?" "Why?" Ethan took a breath. "Because no one else did. And because leaving a moment like that empty felt wrong." Kalira considered his answer. She had expected excuses, fear, or ambition. She sensed none of those. "You do not seek advantage," she said quietly. "That makes you dangerous in a different way." Ethan almost smiled, but stopped himself. "If I've caused harm, I will accept the blame." She shook her head. "You have caused disruption, not harm. There is a difference." She gestured toward a seat, but Ethan remained standing. Kalira did not comment on it. She respected discipline when she saw it. "The elders are divided," she continued. "Some wish to void the ritual. Others insist it must proceed. My father stands between them." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I never meant to put your family in conflict." "You didn't," Kalira said. "The conflict was already there. You simply revealed it." She walked toward the window and looked out at the gardens. "The protector's stand was created long ago. In those days, my people believed that strength revealed itself through action, not bloodline. The one who stepped forward was believed to be guided by fate. And now?" Ethan asked. "Now we fear fate," she answered softly. There was silence again, but it felt less heavy this time. Kalira turned back to him. "The ritual cannot be undone without consequence. But it does not end with the ceremony. There are trials." Quote. Ethan straightened slightly. "What kind of trials?" "Not battles," she said. "Those are easy. These trials test judgment, restraint, and loyalty. They are meant to see whether the one who stepped forward understands the weight of standing beside royalty." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then I will face them." "You do not know what that means," Kalira said. "I know what responsibility feels like," he replied. "That may be enough." For the first time, Kalira looked uncertain. "You speak as if you have carried something heavy for a long time," she said. "I have," Ethan answered simply. Later that day, the first trial began. There was no audience, no cheering crowd. Only a circular chamber with smooth stone walls and a single elder seated at its center. Kalira and Ethan stood on opposite sides of the room. "The trial of presence," the elder announced. "You will remain here together until dawn. No tasks will be given. No words required. We will observe." Ethan frowned slightly but said nothing. The door closed. Hours passed. They sat across from each other, the quiet stretching between them. Ethan remained still, breathing slow and even. Kalira watched him from time to time, expecting restlessness or discomfort. She saw none. Eventually she spoke. "Most fail this trial." "Why?" Ethan asked. "They try to impress. Or they demand explanation. Or they grow angry at the silence." "And you?" he asked. "I learned long ago how to endure being unseen." Her words carried more weight than she intended. Ethan looked at her then, really looked. "Being unseen is different from being alone," he said. "But both can feel the same." Kalira's fingers tightened slightly against the stone floor. She had not expected understanding. When dawn came, the elder returned and nodded once. "The first trial is complete." The second trial came the next day. This time, they were brought before a simulated council chamber. Holographic figures appeared, representing rival nobles, foreign envoys, and advisors. A crisis unfolded, a fictional dispute that threatened trade and peace. "You will decide together," the elder said. "Speak freely." Kalira immediately began analyzing strategy, weighing consequences and traditions. Ethan listened without interrupting. When she paused, he spoke carefully. "Your plan is strong," he said, "but it assumes fear will keep them in line. Fear works until it doesn't." She turned to him sharply. "Then what would you suggest?" "Give them a way to save face," Ethan replied. "Strength doesn't need to be loud. Sometimes, It just needs to be steady. They worked through the scenario together. Kalira began to realize something surprising. Ethan did not challenge her authority. He supported it, filling gaps she hadn't noticed. Not trying to lead, but ensuring no one fell behind. The elder watched closely. After the trial, Kalira walked beside Ethan through the halls. "You are not like the others," she said. "I'm not trying to be," he answered. That night, whispers spread through the palace. Guards spoke of the human who neither bowed nor boasted. Servants spoke of the princess, who walked more lightly than before. The third trial came unexpectedly. An emergency drill was announced. A simulated breach in the outer district. Confusion spread. Alarms echoed. Kalira moved to take command. But the elder stopped her. "Observe," he said. Ethan reacted instantly. He moved civilians first, guided guards without shouting, and placed himself where pressure was highest. He did not seek praise or authority. He simply acted. Kalira watched from above. For the first time, she felt something loosen in her chest. When the drill ended, the elder spoke quietly. The trials near their end. That evening, Kalira found Ethan alone in the garden. "You could still leave," she said. "My father would allow it." Ethan shook his head. "Leaving now would mean I stepped forward without meaning it. I won't do that." She studied him for a long moment. "Then neither will I," she said. Above them, the palace lights shimmered softly. Neither spoke, but something unspoken had already taken shape, something built not from tradition or command, but from trust. And deep within the palace archives, ancient symbols stirred once more, as if recognizing a bond that had not been seen in generations. Word of the completed trials had spread beyond the inner halls. Nobles gathered in quiet groups, speaking behind careful smiles. Some looked toward the gardens where Ethan and Princess Kalira had been seen walking together the night before. Others watched the council chambers, waiting for a decision that would shape the future of the kingdom. Ethan stood alone in a small training courtyard, practicing slow, controlled movements. He did not train to impress. He trained because stillness helped him think. His mind was calm, but his heart felt heavy. He understood now that the trials were no longer about ritual alone. They were about choice. Behind him, footsteps approached. King Vioelric entered the courtyard without guards. Ethan stopped at once and bowed his head respectfully. "Rise," the king said. Ethan straightened, meeting the king's gaze. Vioelric studied him closely, not as a ruler judging a subject, but as a father measuring the presence of someone near his child. "You have unsettled my court," the king said. "I never meant to," Ethan replied. "But I will not deny what I've done." "That honesty is rare," Vioelric said, "and dangerous." They walked slowly along the edge of the courtyard. The king's voice was calm, but firm. "My eldest daughter carries more weight than any other in this kingdom," Vioelric continued. "She is strong, capable, and alone more often than she admits. Many have sought her hand. None stood beside her. Why do you think that is?" Ethan thought carefully. "Because they saw her strength as something to control, or something to fear." The king stopped walking. "And you?" he asked. "I see it as something to respect," Ethan answered, "and something that doesn't need permission." The king's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. "You understand her more than most," Vioelric said. "That is why this concerns me." Ethan did not flinch. "If she wishes me gone, I will leave." "She has not said that," the king replied. "In fact, she has said very little. That is how I know this matters to her." They resumed walking. "There is one trial left," the king said. "It is not written in law, but it has decided more futures than any ritual." "What is it?" Ethan asked. Vioelric turned to face him. "Choice. Made in public. With consequence." Later that day, the Grand Council was summoned. The chamber filled with nobles, elders, and representatives from allied worlds. The air felt heavy, charged with expectation. Ethan stood near the center, hands at his sides, calm on the outside, steady on the inside. Princess Kalira entered moments later. She wore formal armor rather than ceremonial robes. Not battle armor, but something symbolic. Strong, dignified, and unmistakably hers. The room quieted as she took her place beside her father. The elder who had overseen the trials stepped forward. "The Protector's stand has been accepted," the elder announced. "The trials have been completed. The final matter now rests with the council and the royal family." Murmurs spread quickly. One noble rose, tall and sharp-featured. "A human cannot be bound to our royal line," he said. "Their kind is unpredictable. Today he stands calmly. Tomorrow he could bring chaos." Another noble followed. "Humans are known for conflict, for stubborn defiance. Is this the legacy we wish to tie to our future?" Ethan listened in silence. Then a third voice spoke, softer but firm. "Humans are also known for loyalty, for standing when others retreat." The debate grew louder. Arguments clashed, not with anger, but with fear and uncertainty. Ethan felt every word like weight pressing against his chest. But he did not speak. He would not defend himself unless asked. At last, the elder raised his staff. "The one who stepped forward may speak," he said. All eyes turned to Ethan. He stepped forward slowly, his voice steady and clear. "I did not come here to change your future," he said. "I came to honor a moment. I did not know the cost when I stepped forward. But I accept it now." Some nobles scoffed quietly. "I am a warrior," Ethan continued, "but not the kind who seeks conquest. My people have learned, often the hard way, that strength without restraint destroys what it protects." He looked toward the council seats. "I do not ask for trust. Trust is earned. I ask only that you judge me by what I do, not what you fear." Silence followed. Then Princess Kaelira stepped forward. "My people," she said, her voice carrying easily through the chamber. "You speak of fear and tradition. I live with both every day." She turned to face the nobles. "All my life, I have been told I am too strong to be loved and too important to be free. Many wished to stand beside me. None wished to stand with me." Her eyes moved to Ethan. "This human did not ask for me. He did not challenge me. He did not try to claim my strength. He simply stood." The chamber was completely silent. "I choose him," Kaelira said. "Not because of tradition, not because of fate, because I trust him." The king closed his eyes briefly, then opened them. "The choice has been spoken," Valeric said. "But I will not force my daughter into a bond without certainty." He turned to Ethan. "Human," the king said, "if you accept this path, you accept more than honor. You accept scrutiny, sacrifice, and a life that will never again be simple." Ethan met his gaze without hesitation. "My life has never been simple," he said, "but it has always been honest." The king nodded slowly. "Then there is one final test," Valeric said. "Not of strength, not of words." The chamber doors opened. Beyond them stood a long bridge of crystal stone, suspended high above the city. Wind swept across it, carrying the sounds of the world below. "This bridge is walked only by those who accept the weight of the crown," the king said. "Once crossed, there is no turning back." Ethan stepped forward without pause. Kaelira moved beside him. Together, they walked. The bridge did not shake. It did not resist. It simply held, as if recognizing the balance between them. From the far end, the council watched in silence. When they reached the other side, Kaelira exhaled slowly, as if releasing a breath she had been holding for years. Ethan stood beside her, not ahead, not behind. That night, the palace archives recorded the decision, not as a conquest, not as an accident, but as a bond chosen freely, witnessed by a kingdom, and accepted by two who understood the cost of standing together. Above the city, the stars seemed closer than before, as if watching a path unfold that would change more than one world. The king's eldest daughter had chosen, and the one she chose was human. At first, the city responded with silence. Not anger, not celebration, just stillness. People stood in doorways, paused in corridors, and looked toward the palace towers, as if waiting for the stars themselves to confirm what they had heard. Inside the palace, King Vielric stood alone in the Hall of Records. Ancient symbols glowed softly along the walls as scribes carefully etched the final decision into crystal tablets. Each mark sealed a truth that could not be undone. When the work was finished, the king rested one hand on the cool stone table and let out a slow breath. He did not regret the decision, but he knew the road ahead would not be easy. Across the palace, Ethan stood in a quiet chamber overlooking the city. He had been offered fine clothing, ceremonial armor, and symbols of status. He accepted none of it. He wore the same simple uniform he always had, freshly cleaned, carefully pressed. A servant approached. "The princess will arrive shortly." Ethan nodded. "Thank you." When Princess Kaelira entered, she dismissed the servant with a gesture. She, too, wore simple attire, formal, but not ornate. For the first time since they met, there was no ritual, no trial, no audience watching them, just two people standing in a quiet room. "You could still walk away," Kaelira said softly. "My father would honor it." Ethan looked at her calmly. "And leave you to explain why I stood when it mattered, then vanished when it became difficult?" She studied his face, searching for doubt. She found none. "I won't leave," he continued. "Not unless you ask me to." She nodded once. "Then I won't." The wedding preparations moved quickly. This was not the long-planned ceremony meant to impress distant powers. It was smaller, more deliberate. Invitations were sent only to those who mattered: family, council elders, and a handful of allies who had proven their loyalty over time. Still, the meaning behind it was far greater than any grand spectacle. On the day of the wedding, the sky above Vale Tor was clear. The twin suns cast warm light across the city, and the air felt lighter, as if the world itself had chosen to breathe easier. Ethan walked into the ceremonial garden alone. The garden was ancient, older than the palace itself. Stone paths wound through glowing plants and shallow streams. At its center stood a simple platform, carved with symbols of unity, not dominance. The king waited there, dressed in formal robes, his expression calm but thoughtful. "You look ready," Vielric said. "I am," Ethan replied. The king studied him for a moment longer, then spoke quietly. "You understand that marrying my daughter does not make you a ruler." Ethan nodded. "I don't want to rule." "Good," the king said. "She does not need someone to lead her. She needs someone who will stand when the weight becomes heavy." Quote, Ethan met his gaze. "I can do that." When Princess Kaelira arrived, the garden grew completely silent. She walked with steady steps, her posture strong, her expression peaceful. She did not look nervous. She looked certain. As she reached the platform, she stood beside Ethan, not behind him. The position was noticed by everyone present. The elder stepped forward and spoke the binding words, ancient and clear. "Today, two stand by choice, not by conquest, not by command, but by trust." Ethan and Kaelira exchanged a single glance. No vows of ownership were spoken. No promises of obedience or power. Only a shared commitment to stand together, to protect what they built, and to face the future as equals. When the final words were spoken, the ancient symbols beneath the platform glowed softly, then faded. The bond was complete. There was no thunder, no burst of light, just a quiet certainty that something important had been set into place. Later, during the private gathering that followed, conversations flowed more easily than expected. Some nobles still watched Ethan with caution, but others approached him with respectful curiosity. He answered simply, never exaggerating, never shrinking from questions. Kaelira observed from nearby, noticing how he never tried to dominate a conversation, never tried to impress. He listened. He responded. He treated everyone the same. For the first time in years, she felt free to step away from constant vigilance. As evening settled, the king raised a glass. "Today," he said, "we have not lost tradition. We have proven it lives." He turned to Ethan. "You came to us as a guest. You stood without being asked. You stayed without being forced." Then to Kaelira, "You chose without fear." The gathering ended with quiet respect rather than loud celebration. That night, Ethan and Kaylira stood on a balcony overlooking the city lights. The sounds below were calm, peaceful. "I don't know what the future holds," Ethan said. Kaylira smiled slightly. "Neither do I. That is what makes it honest." In the weeks that followed, change came slowly, but it came. Allied worlds sent envoys, curious rather than hostile. Some questioned the decision openly. Others watched quietly. None challenged it directly. Ethan never tried to influence politics. He spent his time learning the culture, training with palace guards when invited, and helping where help was needed. He earned trust not through authority, but through consistency. Kaylira continued her duties, but she was no longer alone in them. When council meetings grew heavy, Ethan stood beside her in silence. When decisions weighed heavily, he listened without judgment. The court began to notice. So did the galaxy. Stories spread, not exaggerated tales of conquest, but quiet accounts of a human who stood when others hesitated. Of a princess who chose partnership over expectation. Of a kingdom that discovered strength could look different without becoming weaker. One evening, as the twin suns set beyond the horizon, King Velric watched the city from the same balcony. "You have changed this place," he said to Ethan. Ethan shook his head. "I didn't change it. I just showed up." The king smiled, a rare and genuine expression. "Sometimes," he said, "that is how legends begin." Far above Viel Tor, ships pass through the star lanes, carrying news of the Union to distant worlds. Some would doubt it. Some would misunderstand it, but none could deny it. A human warrior had attended an alien wedding as a guest, and by choosing to stand quietly, honestly, and without demand, he had become part of something greater than himself. Not a conqueror, not a ruler,